نبيا ورسولا. أحبتي، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. طبتم وطاب ممشاكم وتبوأتم من الجنة منزلا بإذن الله. I was your guest speaker today for those who did not make it for Salatul Jum'ah. And I was telling my brothers and sisters that I'm representing Guidance College, one of the Islamic universities that is serving the Muslim community, disseminating authentic and relevant Islamic knowledge in North America. Our topic for tonight is Introduction to Islamic Finance, or if you wish, Islamic Finance 101. It's a very detailed and very interesting topic. I know that we have a lot of questions in mind when it comes to investment and retirement account and credit card and mortgage and so on and so forth. As I said today in the khutbah, it's not close to impossible. It is impossible actually to cover this topic from A to Z with all details only in one presentation between Maghrib and Isha. We usually give maybe 2 or 3 courses, 3 credit hours each one at Guidance College in the Masters in Islamic Finance and Economics to cover this topic, and we barely cover it. Maybe we all agree that the very fundamental difference between the Islamic finance and the man-made, if you wish, finance, or the traditional conventional finance, is the riba issue. Is that correct? If riba is involved, then the finance system is not an Islamic one. If the riba is not there, is not involved, then most probably we are in a compliance with the Islamic principles. So riba actually is the fundamental difference between the Islamic versus the non-Islamic one. Of course, there are like several deficiencies that we need to take into consideration and make sure that any contract, any agreement, any business, any enterprise that we get involved in is free of those deficiencies. Have you heard about al-gharar, ambiguity, misrepresentation, al-jahala, gambling nature, business, and so on and so forth? All these different deficiencies actually have to be taken into consideration. We have to make sure that any contract, any business that we get involved in is far away from those deficiencies. However, the most important deficiency or defect that impacts the transaction or the business and make it haram actually is the riba one. Having said that, maybe we have heard from our mashayikh and ulama several different confusing definitions of riba, right? Sometimes you hear like exchanging wheat for wheat or barley for barley with inequality, right? This is actually one of the categories of riba, but this is not the one that is agreed upon its prohibition. This is not the most severe level or category of riba. The one that you see on the slide here on the screen is the riba that is agreed upon its prohibition. It is the most severe one. It is the very, very common one and the most prevailing one. Based on my very humble experience in this field, maybe more than 97, 98% of the prohibited transactions in the United States here in the finance system belong to this category of riba. Look at the definition here. It is the premium that must be paid. Premium must be paid by the borrower to the lender, of course, along with the principal, right? Either as a condition for the loan, for issuing a loan, or for the extension of its maturity. We have a lot of components in this definition. One more time, the premium that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. So we are basically talking about a loan agreement. Someone is borrowing money from somebody else. Someone is lending money to somebody else, right? The principal is guaranteed, and the return on the principal is guaranteed as well. Once we reach to a conclusion that there is a loan advanced in any transaction, directly or indirectly, explicitly or otherwise, and that financier, the one who gives the money, is guaranteeing by the law of the land, by the agreement, by the contract, is guaranteeing his principal and guaranteeing the return on the principal, that is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. Period. That's the whole story. Maybe you agree with me that the core business in any finance institute in the United States, talking about credit card companies, talking about banks, financiers, whatever the institute might be, their main job is to advance money or to give money or to lend money with interest. You walk like to any bank, any conventional bank, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, you name it, right? And you apply for a loan, whether that loan is a personal loan or an investment loan or a student loan, whatever the loan might be. You receive money by the agreement between you and that company or that bank. The principal is guaranteed and the return is guaranteed. You take a $100,000 business loan from Bank of America for 3% APR, annual percentage rate. What does it mean? It means that within 1 year, you have to pay back 100,000 plus 3% of that 100,000. And if you decide to keep the money for 2 years, that's another 3% for the second year, for the third year, and so on and so forth. Someone might say, well, what is wrong with that? If everybody is happy, you have a business and you want to upgrade your business, okay? You go to a bank, you take a loan, okay? You make 10, 15% profit. You pay off the principal, you pay off the interest, and again, everybody is happy. Well, this is correct in certain cases, but there are some other severe cases that you did not take into consideration. It does happen every now and then. That you borrow money. You want to put it down? Sure. It does happen every now and then that you borrow money, of course, with interest. For some reason, the business does not go through, right? You do not make any profit whatsoever, no profit whatsoever, and the bank is still actually going after you, asking for his share, which is the APR. Well, sometimes the business goes too bad, so much so that you lose even the principal itself. You took money from Bank of America back in February or March 2020. And then the pandemic, COVID-19, started hitting. The whole economy in the United States gets frozen, right? You did your best to keep up with the business. It didn't work out. You lost everything. You did not make a profit. You did not even preserve your principal. Well, based on the contract between you and Bank of America, or sometimes they call it Bad of America, the bank actually, going after you, asking for the principal, asking for the profit or for the interest. Well, this is actually unjust and unfair. Now, the other extreme scenario that does happen, and actually it does happen every now and then, same scenario. You take $100,000. It does happen that you make 100% profit, sometimes 1,000% profit. And then, I mean what I say. Some of my friends, actually, they do have business. Sometimes they make 1,000% profit. They do. Well, is it fair enough? Is it fair enough to take $100,000 loan and to make 1,000% profit and you give only 5% to the lender? Is that the justice and the fairness that you are looking for? Of course, actually, it is not just and it is not fair. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits interest, He prohibits interest anytime, anywhere, regardless of the percentage involved in it, right? Whether it is 1% or 5% or 10% more or less, it does not make any difference. Any kind of agreement where someone is advancing money and he or she guarantees the principal and guarantees the return on the principal, that is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. We do not have any issue, Muslims living in this society or anywhere, even like our fellow Americans, if you ask them a question, do practicing Muslims deal with interest? The answer would be no. Interest is prohibited for Muslims to deal with, right? This is not the issue. The issue here is how to navigate through the system and to find out what are the interest-bearing transactions to be avoided versus the interest-free transactions to be conducted confidently with no hesitance. That is the challenge. And the reason behind this challenge is that the terminology or the terms that are used, the technical terms that are used in the US finance and economic system are far, far away different from the technical terms that you and I have learned when we were studying, fiqh and studying different rules of riba, right? In the classical fiqh books, you read riba al-fadl and riba al-nasa and riba al-nasi'a and riba al-jahiliya and riba al-diyun. None of those, terms exist nowadays in the actual real on the ground transactions. The terms that we deal with nowadays are completely different. Sometimes you come across a payment or a charge called interest, right? Interest. Sometimes commission, bonus. I mean, a payment you either pay or you receive from others. So we hear a term called late fees, interest, commission, what else? Bonus, right? Overdraft charge, penalty, right? And so on and so forth. That is actually where the confusion comes from. Is that late fees? Or that commission, or that interest, or that service fees, right? Or overdraft charge? Is it the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited? And regardless, whether you are the one who is paying it or you are the one who is receiving it. That's actually where the confusion comes from. Our job as practicing Muslims is to educate ourselves and to master the foundation, like the very basic rules of riba. And then after that, we can take those contemporary transactions and try to unlock their secret. Just find out and answer a very simple question. Is there anyone advancing money where the money is guaranteed and the return on the money is guaranteed? If you can deduct such a practice, that is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. Whether it is called interest or called otherwise, we do not care. Look at the definition one more time before I change the slide. It is the premium that must be paid by the borrower to the lender along with the principal, either as a condition for issuing the loan or for the extension of its maturity. So from now on, whenever I say riba or I say interest or usury, actually I'm referring to this category of riba, which was something very, very prevailing and very common during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, before his prophethood, even before his birth, and even after his prophethood ﷺ, all the way until riba was permanently prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all know the ayah by heart toward the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. All you who believe, fear Allah and leave what is remaining from riba if you claim to be believers. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you are not willing to quit and listen, then you are waging a war against Allah and His Prophet. وَإِن تُبْتُمْ, but if you repent, فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. Then you limit yourselves to your principles without oppressing others and without being oppressed by others. What was the reason behind the revelation of this ayah? You read like several أسباب النزول. You read in Muwatta al-Imam Malik, for example. He said, كان الرجل يقرض الرجل فإذا جاء الأجل قال أمهلني وأزيدك. People used to lend, to give interest to one another. Believe it or not, interest-free loans. And toward the maturity of the loan, the borrower would approach the lender by saying, أمهلني وأزيدك. I cannot pay the loan. Give me more time and I will pay you more. Give me more time and I will pay you more. So they introduced riba toward the maturity of the loan. Or otherwise, قال إما أن تقضي وإما أن تربي. Sometimes the lender actually is the one who approaches the borrower by saying, listen, the loan is due. You have two options. You either pay me the principal and you're good to go. No consequence. If you want more time, that's fine. But guess what? You need to pay me more, right? So whether that offer comes from the lender or comes from the borrower, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم. What kind of riba he is referring to? To this very particular kind of riba. Forget about the confusion, exchanging orange for orange or apple for apple or wheat for wheat or gold for gold. This actually does not happen, most probably does not happen nowadays. In the United States in 2022, we do not exchange wheat for wheat or orange for orange or even gold for gold. We're talking about interest-bearing loans. And again, if you scan the most prevailing services that those financial institutes, whether banks or financiers or investment companies or whatever, offer to their clients, you are talking about interest-bearing loan. You are talking about interest-bearing loan. You take money, and that money is guaranteed. You have to pay it back, and you have to pay on top of it a certain percentage as an APR. That is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. That is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. Back to the challenge that we are facing here. We need to navigate through the system and find out, is there anyone giving money to somebody else where the principal is guaranteed and the return is guaranteed? If the answer is yes, that transaction is an interest-bearing loan, even if it is called otherwise. Even if it is called otherwise. I'll give you some practical examples. You have only $300 in your debit card, not credit card, debit card. And you went somewhere to a point of sale, you made a transaction of $500. Most probably, the transaction would go through, right? Most probably, the transaction would go through. And then after 1 or 2 weeks in the bank statement or online statement, you find out $200 to be paid back, and there are $35 overdraft charge. Oh, it's not interest, it is overdraft charge. Now, your job and my job is to unlock the secret and try to interpret what's going on here. What does it mean that you have only $300, right, available cash in your checking account that you use through your debit card? What does it mean that you make a transaction of $500 and it goes through? It means that somebody else paid the $200 on your behalf. Am I correct? Do you have to pay those $200 back or not? Or just a gift? You have to pay them back. Well, that is the loan. Someone is lending you $200. So far, so good. If this is the only thing that I have to pay the $200 back, then we have no concern here. Problem here is that you have to pay on top of those $200 another $35 overdraft charge, which means that you exceeded your limit in a positive way. You use the money that you do not own. Okay, we agreed as a bank to pay on your behalf. You pay us those $200 plus 35 more or less. I'm just giving a random example. $35 overdraft charge. The default rule here from an Islamic perspective is that anything the borrower is paying on top of the principal will be counted as interest unless otherwise proven. Any amount that is to be paid by the borrower to the lender on top of the principal will be interpreted, will be counted as riba, as interest, as haram riba, unless otherwise proven. Now, you have the responsibility, okay, you are responsible to justify those $35 and to convince me that this is not riba, this is something else. Well, it might work out, but most probably it will not. That extra amount is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. Well, from your end as a practicing Muslim, just double check and make sure that you have sufficient balance in your debit card before you go ahead and you make a transaction. Why opening a saving account is not a halal option for Muslims? Saving account. Because you go to Bank of America and you deposit $10,000. By the FDIC, those $10,000 are guaranteed, and you will be taking 2 or 3 or 4% on top of them on an annual basis, right? Okay, what is the difference between this scenario and the other scenario where I give you $10,000 and ask as a loan, and I tell you, listen, you need to pay it back $10,000 plus $300. That's 3%. Is that correct? In 1 year. So here is $10,000. You pay it back to me by the end of June of next year, 2023. You pay it back to me $10,000, $300 on top of it. Well, that's an interest-bearing loan. That's a straightforward interest-bearing loan. What is the difference between this scenario and the other scenario where you take those $10,000 from Bank of America, you deposit that money in Bank of America or in Chase, and Bank of America actually guarantees you $300 every year on top of the principal. Well, this is an interest-bearing loan, and this is an interest-bearing loan. The only difference is that this one is a very explicit. Here is $10,000 loan, interest-bearing loan. While when you open a saving account, it's not introduced to you as an interest-bearing loan, just a saving account, just a saving account. But it's reality when you have that background, that fiqh background. Oh, you know that Bank of America is taking the money. Well, believe it or not, Bank of America actually is the borrower, and you are the lender. And you might say, is it possible that Bank of America, that has trillions of dollars, is borrowing $10,000 from me? Yes, that's absolutely the case. Okay, we do not, in a positive way, we do not care about who has trillions of dollars and who has a few thousands of dollars. What we care about is the nature of the agreement. Is the nature of the agreement. You give your money to a different party called Mr. Bank of America, and Mr. Bank of America guarantees those $10,000 plus $300. Well, that is the interest-bearing loan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. This actually takes me to the next slide. Okay. Look at this fiqh maxim here that we need to have in mind always. Whenever you come across a transaction, you need to remember this qaida, this qaida fiqhiyya. What matters in transactions is the essence and the reality, not the wording or the formality. What matters in transactions is the essence and reality, not the wording or the formality. What does that mean? It means, in a very simple language, we do not care about the terms that you use. We do not care about the terms that you use in the agreement, right? What we care about is the nature of the agreement. Maybe for the 10th time, I know that I'm repeating myself, but actually I do this purposely. Okay, what we care about is the nature of the agreement. Is there anyone in this deal, this partnership, this transaction, this enterprise, this financial endeavor, whatever you want to call it, is there anyone advancing money, and that money is guaranteed, and his return on investment is guaranteed, both principal and return? If the answer is yes, well, that's the riba. If the answer is yes, then that's the riba. Okay. Something that we need to take into consideration here. Loan is not a mode of finance in the Islamic finance system. Loan is not a mode of finance. And this is actually one of the very fundamental differences between the Islamic and the man-made finance system, right? When you want to finance traditionally, you take a loan. Well, in the Islamic finance, principles, you cannot take a loan as a mode of finance. Loan actually is advanced as a kind of benevolence, a kind of charity, a kind of support and help to others. Someone is in desperate need for some money to pay the rent of his house or his apartment, or to pay the tuition fees for his kids, or to do like a surgery or whatever. You give him the money, few months, few weeks, and then he will be paying you back. But this is actually not a finance. This is just a qardun hasan, that is interest-free loan. Okay. If I do have, which is of course not the case, if I do have $100,000 available cash, and you have your own business, you have a car dealership business, and you approach me asking me for $100,000 loan, and I know for a fact that you're going to take my money, and upgrade your business. You take my money for 1 or 2 years, right? You upgrade your business. You take that money from me, qardun hasan, because you and I both are practicing Muslims, right? We do not deal with interest. So do you want me to give you $100,000 for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then you come back after 2 years and you give me a big hug, Jazakallahu khairan, here is your $100,000. Seriously? Is this a good business? You take my money, you invest my money, you make a profit, right? And then you pay me the principal back. I mean, is this a good business? This is a bad business. If I know that you want my $100,000 for business purposes, I would say, sorry, I cannot give you a loan, because loan in Islam is guaranteed. Okay, loan is given as a charity. I give you only 5,000 to pay, like, for your necessities, and you pay me back those 5,000, no more and no less. But if you want my money, the $100,000 for business purposes, well, let's sit down and talk business. What kind of business you have? Why you want the money? Okay, what kind of role I will be playing in this business, right? If I'm not that good in car dealership, or I'm good but actually I'm not available enough, well, we can establish what's called mudaraba, trustee partnership. I give you the money. You invest the money only and only in car dealership business in the United States for 1 complete year. Toward the end of the fiscal year or the business course, we sit down together and find out how much profit you have made. We made a deal from the beginning that, okay, I will be entitled to 25% of the net profit of your business. And by the way, there is no specification here. It depends on demand and supply, right? Whatever you and I agree upon would be fine. I give you the $100,000. I cannot guarantee the principal, leave aside to guarantee the profit. The deal here, the trustee partnership, is that here you go, here is the $100,000. You use it only and only for car dealership business, right? And I cannot be an active partner. I have to be a silent or a sleeping partner, sometimes they call me. I give you the money and I just go home. You run the business from A to Z, okay? Toward the end of the year, if and only if there is a profit, actual real net profit, after paying off every expense and after securing the principal back, if we still have some money, that money is the net profit. That money is divisible between you and I. I take my 25%, you take 75%, and we good to go. I get my principal, and that will be the end of the mudaraba if you want to continue for 1 year. If there is no profit, I cannot go after you and ask for 30% of your business. I cannot, because that's the nature of the mudaraba. Well, worst case scenario, if you lost that money and it is proven for fact that there was no negligence or carelessness or shortcoming from your side, believe it or not, I cannot even ask for my principal. We call this, this model in a very technical term, we call it a risk-sharing model. Risk-sharing model. We do not allow in the Islamic finance system, we do not allow anyone to take advantage of others or to exploit needy individuals. While the traditional financial system goes with risk-shifting model. Risk-shifting in a sense that Bank of America does not take any risk whatsoever, right? He gives you the money, you take the money, you take the liability and the risk, and they guarantee their principal and their profit, which is of course riba and haram profit. And this is, all what they do. Just money for money. They give you $100,000 for 1 year, you pay it back 100,000, 3,000 on top of it, and that's it. We do not go with this model in the Islamic finance system. Every single business that you want to do, of course, it depends on the nature of the business. Every single mode of finance does have to involve a certain amount of risk. The one that I shared with you, which is the mudaraba one, is the most ideal one. I mean, this is the wonderful, the perfect, the idealistic, I would say, mode of finance, which is the mudaraba, right? Mudaraba means money from one side, business and operation and management from the other side. There's something called just musharaka. Musharaka, which means that like group of individuals, they pitch in or just contribute a certain amount of money and they assign someone to run the business. When there is a profit, everybody will be sharing the profit. When there is a loss, everybody will be incurring loss, proportionally. Back to our examples. Every single transaction, before you pass a judgment and you jump to a conclusion, say, oh, this is haram, this is halal, you need to slow down and unlock the secret of the agreement and find out who is giving money, and that money is guaranteed, and the return on the money is guaranteed. I'll give you maybe the most explicit example that everyone here actually has in mind, which is mortgaging homes in the United States, right? Before you say, well, the default rule is that mortgage is haram or mortgage is halal, what does mortgage mean? Based on the way it is implemented here in the USA. When someone mortgages a house in the USA, it means that he or she got involved in 3 different simultaneous transactions together at the same time, simultaneously. Mortgage means sale agreement. You as a client, as a customer, you buy a house from the landlord. You buy a house from the landlord. Because you do not have money, you go to a mortgage company and you ask them to finance the house for you. They run like a check and just make sure that you're qualified enough. They check your credit score and your income and your employment history and your income debt ratio, all these like different due diligence. Upon approving you, tell you, okay, we're gonna give you a loan, right? We're gonna mortgage your house for 3.75%. And they issue a check on your behalf, okay, payable to whom? Not to you, to the landlord, right? Now, in order for them, for the mortgage company, right, countrywide, for example, Bank of America, in order for them to secure their money, they put a lien on the property. They put a lien on the property, and they act as a lien holder, Sheikh, and not as a buyer, as a lien holder. Our discussion today after Jummah. So you are talking about sale agreement, the loan agreement, and a mortgage agreement. We do not have any issue with the sale agreement. Someone is buying a house. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted sale agreement, right? وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. We do not have any issue with the lender securing his money. Like putting a lien on the property to secure your money is halal. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا. Who can help me? Thank you. وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضَةٌ. Believe it or not, رِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضَة is the mortgage. According to the Quranic definition of mortgage, it is the rihan. It means that someone wants $100 from me, right? I'm willing to give you the 100, but with all due respect, I do not know you. Give me your phone or your watch until tomorrow morning. Whenever you bring the money, the $100, I'll give you your watch back. That's called rahan. We do not have any issue with the rahan according to this definition of rahan. So the mortgage company puts a lien or mortgages your property, right? And acting as a lien holder is fine, right? The only problem we have here is the interest-bearing loan. You borrow $500,000 from Bank of America. You pay it back $800,000 within the next 20, 25, or 30 years, right? They do their own math and they take into consideration the inflation and they do the amortization, right? And you pay, your monthly payment is divided into principal and interest. The amortization that you all know. The mortgage company is not taking any risk whatsoever, right? They give you money and you pay them money plus the interest. No maintenance, no tax, no insurance, because of a very simple reason. The mortgage company does not own the property. They finance the property. They do not own it. And this is actually a very fundamental difference between Islamic finance and conventional finance when it comes to home mortgage or mortgaging homes, right? If you want to go with someone asked me today about the murabaha. Murabaha actually is to ask the Islamic finance company to purchase the property. They buy it, they close on it, they become the exclusive owner of the property. If something happens in between, they are fully liable for any potential loss that might happen, depreciation, whatever musibah or disaster might happen. Because of the risk that they have taken, they can sell back or resell that property back, to you with a higher price. So they pay $100,000 for the house and they sell it back to you 150, for the next 5 years. That's called murabaha. They took a risk, took a liability because they own the property. You want to go with ijara, which is lease to own. We have to make sure that the Islamic mortgage company is purchasing, buying the property, acting as the landlord throughout the whole lease agreement, they have to be fully responsible for the maintenance, for the tax, for the insurance, believe it or not. That's why how they justify their money, right? Until you become the exclusive owner, and then you kick them out of the deal and you become the exclusive owner of the property. You go with the diminishing partnership. We have to make sure that the mortgage company is owning the house, and they are liable up to certain limit, liable proportionally. If they own 30% of the house and you own 70%, then maintenance, tax, and insurance have to be shared proportionally. If they own 90%, then they have to be liable, responsible 90% for the tax, for the maintenance, for the insurance. In every single mode of finance, we have to make sure, since we are talking about mortgaging homes in the US, we have to make sure that the so-called Islamic mortgage company is owning the property. Murabaha, they have to assume full legal ownership. Ijara, they have to own the property. Diminishing partnership, they have to own the property. Actual, real, tangible ownership that makes them responsible for any potential depreciation, any potential loss, any potential liability, any potential expense that that they might go through. Without making sure that this ownership is a genuine, real, sound, actual one, then the whole deal is not an Islamic one. Even if it is called so-called nowadays Islamic mortgage transaction or business, actually it is not. What if a certain charge is introduced to you, right, and it does not fulfill the criteria of interest-bearing loan? Well, you can pay it, and you can receive it. Again, it's all about the fact that someone is advancing money, where the money, the principal is guaranteed, where the return on the investment or that money is guaranteed as well. Of course, we can go over and over with several examples. Let me give you like one more example before I open the floor for question and answer. How about using credit card? There is a default rule and there is an exception. Before we move on, we need to find out what does credit card mean? What does holding credit card mean? It means, are you using your own money or you are borrowing money from the credit card company? You are borrowing money. You do not have money. And that's the major difference between like credit and debit card. When you have a debit card, it means that you have checking account that's connected with that debit card. Instead of walking to the bank and withdrawing money, use your debit card that is, that takes from the actual real money that you deposited, right? Credit card means that you are authorized, okay? You are authorized to borrow from a company called credit card company up to certain limit. That's called the line of credit, right? If your credit card has $10,000, it means that you are authorized to borrow up to $10,000. And you can use this money either by cash withdrawal, you just stop by any ATM machine and you withdraw cash money, or you can purchase items, or you can pay bills, right? Whatever you want. Now, borrowing money actually is fine. Problem here is that when you hold a credit card, you have to make sure that you agree to all the terms that they have in that deal. One of them, if you use your credit card for cash withdrawal, you will be charged interest. If you do not pay your monthly statement, right, before the due date, you have to pay interest. And you have to agree to that, right? Agreeing to paying interest is not equivalent to paying interest. And this is like a very, tiny difference between what's called haramun li dhatihi, prohibited for itself, versus haramun li ghayri, prohibited for its potential consequences. When you go to Bank of America and you apply for business loan, that's an interest-bearing loan from day one. Riba is unavoidable. That $100,000 has to be paid back, $100,000 plus, whatever the plus amount might be. So you cannot go around the interest. You have to pay interest anyway. It is not the case when you take a credit card with $100,000 line of credit. Well, riba in this case, in the second scenario, actually is avoidable. Riba is avoidable. If you know your limits very well, if you refrain from using your credit card for for cash withdrawal yesterday. Sorry. I scared my audience online with it. If you know, I'm good. If you know your limits very well, you refrain from using your credit card for cash withdrawal, right? You pay the monthly statement on time, well, before the due date. You pay it in full. Well, believe it or not, you can continue using your credit card for years and years without paying interest, right? You cannot tell me that agreeing to paying interest is equivalent to paying interest. Oh, there is a difference. Like, from a haram and halal perspective, there is a difference. Our fuqaha said, al-haramu lidatihi tubihuhu ad-darura. Whatever is prohibited for itself cannot be permitted unless there is a necessity. Haramu lidatihi is to borrow money with interest. Is to go to Bank of America or to Chase or to Wells Fargo and to borrow money, right? This is haramu lidatihi. Unless you can make a case that there is a necessity involved here, right? Something that desperately needed. You cannot survive without having cash money. You couldn't find money with no interest. This is the only way for you to secure money to survive, to pay for your apartment, to pay for your bills, to buy food, to put on the table for your family members. Something that's really important, right? Well, if there is a necessity, you can go ahead and borrow money with interest. And there is no Islamic alternative. وَالْحَرَامُ لِغَيْرِهِ تُبِيحُهُ الْحَاجَةِ. Whatever is prohibited for otherwise, for its potential consequences, would be permitted in case of general and public need. Do we need to use a credit card in this society here? My answer is yes. Maybe your need is different than mine, different than her. But at the end of the day, Muslims living here in this society are in need to use credit card. Sometimes you cannot use your debit card. No cash accepted. No personal check. No cash. It has to be credit card. In order for you to build and to establish a credit history, to have a good credit, you have to have a credit card, right? So there is a public and general need for using credit card. Well, if you use a credit card, limit yourself to the permissible, to allowable use of that credit card. Stay away from cash withdrawal. Make sure that you pay the monthly statement in full and before the due date. Those are just a few examples on how can we Muslims unlock the secret of those contemporary transactions and just make sure that whatever is halal, we conduct it. Whatever is haram, we just stay away from it. One more thing quickly before I open the floor for question and answer is the what's called the Islamic mortgage companies in the US. We need to understand how does the system work. Those five major Islamic mortgage companies, okay, or those who offer Islamic option for practicing Muslims, like Guidance Residential, like University Islamic Financial, like Devon Bank, Ijara Loan, and La Riba. All those five different companies, they deal in the secondary market. They sell their contracts to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. So they have to make sure that they are Freddie Mac compliant, and by any chance, if they can be a Sharia compliant, then they should. But if they cannot, they have to satisfy the requirements of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, because they do not have the luxury of waiting for you and I, paying them back the loan, right? The loan within 30 years or 20 years. They cannot wait. So they sign an agreement with you, and next day in the morning they turn their face and they go to Freddie Mac and they sell that, that contract, getting their cash money back. If the value of the contract is $800,000, they just get $770,000 cash money from Freddie Mac, right? And they sell that contract to Freddie Mac. So you deal with Freddie Mac, right? In order for them to make sure that their contracts are sellable to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, they have to comply with their requirements. And Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, just a straightforward interest, interest-bearing institute, right? They have to make sure that the loan that they are buying or the contract that they are buying is an interest-bearing loan. There is no liability. There is no khatar. There is no risk involved in it. Once they sense that a certain company is taking a risk, right? Liability, maintenance, tax, insurance, possibility of losing money, they would say, well, you are by your own. Sorry, we cannot buy your agreement. So the vast majority of those companies, without mentioning names, well, all of them, let me be straightforward, all of them cannot operate in a strict Sharia compliant way. There is no way. Because of a very simple reason. Okay, the Islamic finance system is based on risk sharing, right? As I already explained, and the traditional finance system is based on risk shifting, right? Because of the severe incompatibility between the two different systems, it is impossible, and I'm responsible for what I say. It is impossible to implement a genuine and sound Islamic finance practice that deals with the non-Islamic one. We have maybe one company that's not available for everybody. It's only for people living in California, called Amin Housing. Have you heard about Amin Housing? Okay. Amin Housing actually is an independent Islamic finance mortgage company that does not deal in the secondary market. They do not sell their contracts to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And that's why they do have the autonomy or the independence to practice whatever they want, right? Their contract is way more Sharia compliant than others. Why? Because they are operating independently away from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Any other company actually does have a certain amount of violations, or if you wish, glitches in the agreement, in the contract that you sign with them, because they sell their contracts to Freddie Mac. Based on our assessment as a Fiqh Council, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, AMJA. Have you heard about AMJA by any chance? You know AMJA? Okay. مجمع فقهاء الشريعة بأمريكا. Based on our assessment, those companies are not in the same level Sharia compliance-wise. Some of them are very serious, doing not their best, doing like a good effort to be Sharia compliant. Some of them are less serious, and some of them are not whatsoever. And based on our assessment, if you go to, well, you can just even Google it. I mean, just type AMJA, AMJA, stands for Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, AMJA, Islamic Mortgage Companies, and just click. You will see a very long declaration in Arabic and in English, breaking down all different companies and what is the official status of AMJA in this regard. Some of them are barely okay, some of them are more okay, and some of them actually are disapproved, absolutely disapproved. They are just straightforward riba-based companies, even though they claim that they are Sharia compliant ones. I would stop by this point and just open the floor for a question and answer. جزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله على محمد. So the Iqamah is at 10:45. 10:40. طيب. Okay, the floor is yours, and I will start from my right side. Sisters here. Yes, ma'am. تفضل. For credit, okay, for credit cards, you get you get points, okay? And at the end of the year, is that money halal to use? Right. Any kind of points that you get, any kind of monetary or non-monetary benefit, free air mileage, points, cash back, whatever you might get out of using your credit card, would that be counted as interest or not? Well, again, do not jump to a conclusion. Who is benefiting from that money? Is it the lender or the borrower? The borrower, right? If you use your credit card for $100, you go to any point of sale and you use it for $100, you purchase an item. If you have to pay the $100, 105, then you are paying interest to the credit company. Am I correct? But with those points, with those benefits, you borrow $100,000 and you get $5 cash back. So that the outcome result is that you pay 100, you borrow 100 and you pay it back how much? 95, right? That's completely the opposite of riba. That's the opposite of riba. You get it? You borrow $100 and you pay it back, like the result after you get $5 or $3 cash back. You borrow 100 and you pay it less. If you pay more, so do you want me to jump and get the question? I will not go there. So if you, Jazakallah khair. Again, if you borrow 100 and you pay it back 105, that is riba. If you borrow 100 and you pay it back 95, then this is completely the opposite of riba. So to answer the question, those cash back and those benefits that you might gain out of using your credit card are halal. So do not worry about them. And if you have any doubt or you do not want the money, just give it to me. I will take it. Fine. Let me take a question from the brother side here. Other side. تفضل أخي. طيب, if you do not mind, let me ask you the same question. Okay, what matters in transaction is the essence and reality and not wording or formality. When you borrow from your 401k, are you really borrowing money or are you taking your own money? Do you know why? Because even the interest or so-called interest that you have to pay goes back to whom? To your account. So it's like a joke, like you take money from one pocket and you put it in the other pocket, right? So they call it a loan, okay, for tax, reduction or legal tax evasion technique, like because if you borrow from your 401k, that's a tax-free money. Am I correct? So at the end of the day, it's not a loan to start with. It's not a loan to start with. Whatever you have in 401k, whether your contribution or the match of your employer, whatever you have in your account is your money. So when you take from your money, you are not borrowing money. And when you pay interest to yourself, you are not paying interest because basically there was no loan to start with. You see, based on this qaida and this fiqh maxim, what matters in transaction is the essence and the reality. The essence here, the reality of this deal is that it is not a loan, right? So even if you have to pay interest, well, this is not an interest, even if it is called interest. طيب, Sheikh. Well, the Sheikh is asking about the pension plan or even the 401k, right? Whatever retirement account might be. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, always, there is a certain percentage of haram involved in your retirement account. And that haram sometimes avoidable and sometimes unavoidable. If you can avoid it, if you do have the authority of sitting and just setting your own portfolio and pick and choose whatever you want, then you have to do. Because the qaida here is لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not task any soul beyond its capacity. So if you can filter or purify or even choose a portfolio that's purely halal one, then you have to do it this way. But the reality is otherwise, that you do not have full control. If it is a pension plan, you have no control whatsoever. If it is a 401k or 403, if you work for non-for-profit organizations, 401k if you work for corporate America, usually the financial advisor gives you like 5 different options: portfolio number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you pick and choose. Your job here is to find out what kind of difference between portfolio 1 and portfolio 2. Do your best to limit yourself to stocks only. Stay away from bonds and derivatives and options and futures, all these different financial instruments that people deal with in the stock market. Do your best to choose halal industries, and if you want to go with the book, there is still like some more due diligence that has to be done. Debt asset ratio, interest generated profit, interest bearing investment. Okay, how much is the percentage? But generally speaking, just do your best. If you reach to a conclusion that the minimum haram that you can keep, okay, in your retirement account is 10%. Well, every single year, dispose 10% of the profit, okay, not the total, the profit of the account that you have, and then you pay zakatul mal on the rest, and that is actually the best you can do. Okay, some people actually, some brothers and sisters take it to the extreme. They just compromise their retirement account. They do not have retirement account to start with. And when I ask them a question why, they would say, well, there is no way to make sure that the investment is 100% halal. Akhi, that's wallahi too much. That's way too extreme. Prophet ﷺ said, إنك إن تذر ورثتك أغنياء خير من أن تذرهم عالة يتكففون الناس. Leaving your family members after your death, leaving your inheritors wealthy, financially stable, is way better than leaving them needy, begging people. I mean, that's my response. I have to take care of my family members during my lifetime, and even after I have to make sure that I'm securing a good source of income for them after my death. I mean, this is the nature of this country. You are by your own. Okay, we do not want to wait until we leave our family members behind, standing by the door of the masjid, asking people for sadaqah and donation. This is wrong. Please do not compromise your 401k or your retirement account. Keep it and just do your best to keep it as halal as possible. اليد العليا خير من اليد السفلى. The upper hand is better than the lower one. Why should I put my family members in a position where they just stand and ask people for sadaqah and donation? So do your best to keep your 401k, your retirement account, as halal as possible. If you cannot, just try to find out how much is approximately the haram percentage involved. Get rid of the profit of that percentage. If you have a 20% haram, for example, dispose of 20% of the profit only, or the growth of that account, and pay zakah on the risk, and that is actually the best you can do. Well, inflation issue actually is a very complicated issue, especially in 2022 after the pandemic. I mean, we experienced have you heard about that? We experienced 7.5% inflation in the United States in 2022. That is unheard of, subhanallah. So that's I would say, nah, طيب, nah, right. طيب, طيب. Nah. Let me take a question from the sisters now. So, is it halal to work for bank? No, it's not. No, it's not. An IT department? No, it's not. No, sorry. If you are directly or indirectly involved in the bank business, which is the case, whether you are an engineer or an IT or even a security. I mean, this is my opinion, and this is like opinion of some people of knowledge. Some of them actually, they do differentiate, okay, between a job that involves borrowing, documenting, right, charging interest, versus anything else that is not directly involved in lending money with interest activities. With all due respect, I do not see it this way. What I believe in is that all different departments actually are fully integrated. They work hand in hand to facilitate, the interest-bearing activities. Otherwise, the CEO of Bank of America is not committing haram. I mean, does he lend money with interest? Does he? He does not, right? Even the manager of any bank is not directly involved in lending money with interest. Can we say that he is not or she is not doing anything haram? Well, he is كبيرهم الذي علمهم السحر, right? I mean, he is the head of the bank, and he is the one who is facilitating and running and supervising the interest-bearing activities. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لعن الله آكل الربا ومؤكله وكاتبه وشاهده. Allah is cursing the one who consumes and the one who feeds, the one who gives. And the script, the writer, and the two witnesses. Even the two witnesses were just sitting and just watching and witnessing the haram transaction are included. And he said, وَقَالَ هُمْ سَوَاء, they are equal in sin. So it is a serious issue. So my answer is that no, stay away from working for any institute that's interest-bearing one. Credit card company, no. Mortgage companies, no. Conventional banks, no. Just stay away from it. So an IT department, okay, some say that because banks, major business is lending money with interest, the money earned is not halal. That's absolutely correct. The money earned is not halal. Would the normal loan be better than Islamic loan if interest or normal is lower, or normal loan is lower? No, because when we talk about Islamic mortgage versus conventional mortgage, we discuss the issue from a permissibility standpoint, not from a feasibility standpoint, right? If you go to any conventional mortgage company, the process is easier and the interest rate is less versus going to Islamic mortgage company. If their practice is a sound and genuine one, usually dealing with them is not as easy as dealing with, their requirements are different. You have to be on W-2, you have to have a certain amount, as an income, the income debt, ratio has to be to them. They have a lot of requirements, right? It's really unfortunate to say again that so-called Islamic mortgage companies are not purely Islamic mortgage companies. They do have violations and glitches in their agreement, but meanwhile, they're not in the same level. Some of them are good enough, some of them are barely acceptable, and some of them actually are not. But to answer the question, when we talk about Islamic versus conventional, we are discussing it from a permissibility perspective, not from feasibility perspective. If we reach to a conclusion that a certain mortgage company is a good option for you, and they charge you 4% profit, and it's not APR, it's a profit if it is halal one, versus conventional bank that charges you only 3%, I would say go with the 4%, pay more, and have a peace of mind, and stay away from interest. Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. It's a free country. Everybody says whatever you want. It's a democratic society. No. It depends on which company you're talking about. They're not the same.
They mention in the agreement it's interest rate. Otherwise, the title company will not sign, will not allow you to sign.
As we said, it's all about the nature of the agreement. Even if it is called interest, if we agree, you and I, that what you are paying extra is not an interest, then even if it is called interest, it is not.
It's interest. I'm sorry to say that. It's okay. But here, my point here, I expect that from you to give us more facility, more easier way to understand the situation now, because one like me, actually, I'm very confused now between what you said, between the Islamic company, which they transfer the agreement at the end to sell this agreement in the secondary market, yeah. Yes. So, and they have to agree with everything with the secondary market, which it require interest rate and require the period of time.
In the real life, it's not a white or a black. We do have a gray area in between. As I said several times, those 5 companies are not in the same level of seriousness and diligence in coming up with a mode of finance that is up to certain limit, to be honest, up to certain limit, Sharia compliant one. Meanwhile, Freddie Mac compliant. It's a long topic. I would highly recommend that you go to our website, AMJA. Well, just Google AMJA, Islamic Mortgage Companies, and read more about those companies. Let me take a question from the sisters, if you don't mind. Some banks offer interest-free payment plan for certain transactions. They split the payment over 3 to 12 months with added find fees for month. Then what do you mean by, fixed fee? Okay, fixed fee per month. Is this allowed? Well, I need to read the contract. I mean, I cannot give just an answer based on this information. However, if you have any zero APR, like for example, when you open a new credit card, they give you introductory period, right? Introductory period means that you can use all the money that you have as long as you commit yourself to paying the minimum payment of $30, $35, $40, then you're good to go. However, toward the end of the introductory period, you have to make sure that you pay off the principal in full, right? If you are almost, inshallah, if you are almost positive that you can handle the situation, you can use the money, and you cannot, you will not get stuck with a big amount toward the end of the introductory period, go for it. This is an interest-bearing loan where the interest actually is stipulated or a conditional one. If and only if you default in paying in full, you will be charged interest. But if not, then you're good to go. Because of the public and general need for that, you can go for it. A question that no one asked already, but it came to my mind. Same as cash, like whenever you purchase any appliances from from Best Buy. Thank you. Right? They give you same as cash. Can you take it? Yes, you can. I mean, why should you pay $1,000 cash for a laptop where you can pay only $1,000, the same amount, in 12 months? So same as cash actually is fine. Let me take a question. Yes, أخي تفضل. حاضر. You need to make sure أخي that the debt is to the minimum. And according to the IOFI standards, they put like a ceiling of 30%. In our fiqh council in Amja, we said no, it's not 30%. It has to be to the minimum. Because like in the real life, if you are looking for a stock that has debt, debt-free or zero debt or zero haram involved in it, you're wasting your time. There is no financial instrument nowadays available in the United States that's 100% halal. It's not the case. So your job is just to keep the haram to the minimum, whether it is the debt-asset ratio, right, or debt, capital ratio, whether it is the interest-bearing investment, how much money they put, like from the value of the stock along, how much they have, in a saving accounts and an interest-bearing investment. If it is 30% or more, stay away from it. And how much the actual generated interest, حاضر, right? If it is 5% or more, stay away from it. Okay. You can go to a good website called atina.co. Here you go. Atina, AATINAA. Atina.co. It's not .com. .co. This is actually an investment company in the stock market, and I'm the Sharia advisor of this company. They have a very good service, free service, which is the Sharia compliance issue. You just go to that website and enter the code of any company. Enter Apple or Microsoft or Walmart or whatever you want, and you will see an instant report showing you how Sharia compliant this stock actually is. So you can depend on this website. I trust it because actually I know exactly how this works, because I'm the Sharia advisor of this company. تفضل أخي. Can you use the microphone, أخي? So everybody would hear the question.
Based on the same principle, we agreed that, inshallah, big difference between the interest base as well as the murabaha base or the Islamic finance. And we know the situation in the States and how let's say, the business structure works. We understand that some of them, as you mentioned earlier, that they are much better than others and so forth. But again, just to respond to the same question, we agreed that definitely, based on the principle, going to the bank, buying a house, from my point of view, I completely agree with you, is totally haram from principle point of view, regardless of the interest charge. Now, in the normal situation and necessity situation, based on, for us people live in the States, now, do you recommend, or your personal opinion, that we should still go to that Islamic finance people based on the best available in the market just for going to buy a house? Or if it's not the case, from your understanding of the finance structure and the system, how it works in the States, what do you recommend for us as Muslims when we decide to buy a house, regardless, based on necessity?
I would recommend you go with the Islamic mortgage companies, and the most reasonable one. There's nothing halal 100%.
Of course, we agree on that.
Yeah, the most reasonable one is Guidance Residential.
Yes.
They do have glitches in their agreement. They guarantee their principal. They find a way to guarantee their principal. But overall, to be like practical, I mean, this is what we have.
Yeah.
So Guidance Residential is a reasonable option. If Guidance is it licensed, to operate in the state of Ohio?
Yes.
Well, that's an option. If it did not work, then maybe you consider the UIF, University Islamic Financial, next door, like in Michigan. Where's Michigan from here? This way? North? Where is north? Upstairs? North?
Yeah.
North. Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
So University Islamic Financial, if you decide to go with the UIF, they have 3 different models. They have Musharaka, and they have Ijara, and they have Murabaha. Stay away from the Musharaka. Their Musharaka actually is not a valid one.
From visible point of view, yes, you are right.
No.
Oh, even from the
permissibility wise. No. I'm not talking about feasibility.
Yes.
Musharaka, Murabaha. I mean, we have a lot of observations, okay, and a lot of question marks regarding the actual real ownership that they assume when it comes to owning. But I mean, this is what we have. As we say it back home, al-ramad wal al-amal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, something is better than nothing. If UIF is not, inshallah, if UIF is not available, then maybe Devon Bank in Chicago, Illinois. Where is Illinois, Sheikh?
Illinois.
Northwest. Same direction. Yeah. Stay away from Ijara loan. Ijara loan is not a Sharia compliant. La riba is the actual real riba. It is the haram riba, so stay away from it. Yeah. This is what we have.
I understand.
How much time we have? I mean, just to make sure. Now, you said final question? تفضل.
Thank you. The last 2 questions. The first is about the Islamic investments. So there are some investments companies that they claim they are investing in Islamic way, and I think there is a board or a council in Bahrain, in Manama, in the country of Bahrain, that they said they set the standards for classifying companies as that you should be investing or not. And there are 2 criteria. I think one of them is the nature of the business itself. I think they said less than 5% of the operations should be in a halal way. That's number 1. So my question, if you agree with that, does that mean 3% does that mean 3% is okay and 6% is not okay? So the other question is, all these companies, regardless of what kind of business they are doing, they deal with interest to finance their own operations. So that's a question about.
Let me answer it. Sure. Here is the issue. We have around 10 to 15 different Muslim-owned mutual fund companies in the United States. We have Azad, and we have Sharia Portfolio, and we have Amana, and we have Iman Fund, and so on and so forth. The majority of those Muslim-based mutual fund companies do not have an independent Sharia advisory and supervisory board. That's number 1. Number 2, all of them claim to be, strictly Sharia compliant ones. They claim, but there is no way for us, like, potential investors, to make sure that their claim actually is correct. كل يدعي وصلا بليلى وليلى لا تقر لهم بذاك. Everybody claims to be a Sharia compliant one. As long as we do not have an access to those companies and find out what kind of business they do, we cannot just take their statement. I mean, they will not say on their website, "Oh, we are bad," right? Everybody, I mean, claims to be perfect. Only those companies who do have Sharia advisor and supervisory board are the ones that you should trust, as long as that board is heavily involved and active and qualified enough, right? I can talk on behalf of Zaki Financial, ZAKI Financial.com. Okay, this is a mutual fund company. Because I'm the Sharia advisor of that company, I can tell you confidently that their investment is halal. Some other companies might have and might not. So from your perspective as a potential investor, you need to find out, do they have Sharia advisory and supervisory board? Do they do like a Sharia audit periodically, right? Every year, maybe once or twice a year. If the answer is yes, and you trust the qualification of those Sharia advisors, then you can confidently invest with this company. I think we need to stop. طيب that will be it إن شاء الله. جزاكم الله خيرا. صلى الله على محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh Al-Qudeh, for being with us here and having a very informative session. And Sheikh Qudeh, if people wants to contact you, do you have an email address, something you can just. So Sheikh Qudeh will be outside on the table outside. So if you need to get information, contact details, he will share that with you. Again, thank you, Jazakumullah khairan, for being us and having a very informative session. Jazakumullah khairan.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله اللهم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله يا رسلتي يا رفلاغي قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Oh, you want to fix it? No. استووا استقيموا. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. وقال الذين لا يرجون لقاءنا لولا أنزل علينا الملائكة أو نرى ربنا لقد استكبروا في أنفسهم وعتوا عتوا كبيرا يوم يرون الملائكة لا بشرى يومئذ للمجرمين ويقولون حجرا محجورا وقدمنا إلى ما عملوا من عمل فجعلناه هباء منثورا أصحاب الجنة يومئذ خير مستقرا وأحسن مقيلا ويوم تشقق السماء بالغمام ونزل الملائكة تنزيلا الملك يومئذ الحق للرحمن وكان يوما على الكافرين عسيرا ويوم يعض الظالم على يديه يقول يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا يا ويلتى ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا لقد أضلني عن الذكر بعد إذ جاءني وكان الشيطان للإنسان خذولا وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا وكذلك جعلنا لكل نبي عدوا من المجرمين وكفى بربك هاديا ونصيرا وقال الذين كفروا لولا نزل عليه القرآن جملة واحدة كذلك لنثبت به فؤادك ورتلناه ترتيلا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ولا يأتونك بمثل إلا جئناك بالحق وأحسن تفسيرا الذين يحشرون على وجوههم إلى جهنم أولئك شر مكانا وأضل سبيلا ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلنا معه أخاه هارون وزيرا فقلنا اذهبا إلى القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا فدمرناهم تدميرا وقوم نوح لما كذبوا الرسل أغرقناهم وجعلناهم للناس آية وأعتدنا للظالمين عذابا أليما وعادا وثمود وأصحاب الرس وقرونا بين ذلك كثيرا وكلا ضربنا له الأمثال وكلا تبرنا تتبيرا ولقد أتوا على القرية التي أمطرت مطر السوء أفلم يكونوا يرونها بل كانوا لا يرجون نشورا وإذا رأوك إن يتخذونك إلا هزوا أهذا الذي بعث الله رسولا إن كاد ليضلنا عن آلهتنا لولا أن صبرنا عليها وسوف يعلمون حين يرون العذاب من أضل سبيلا أرأيت من اتخذ إلهه هواه أفأنت تكون عليه وكيلا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you so much, Jazakumullah khairan, for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It was an honor to meet you all. Thank you for the leadership, for the Imam, for the administration of the masjid, for the community at large, for attending this seminar. When it comes to asking fiqh questions, let me give you the phone number of Amja Fatwa Hotline. This is a service that we provide at Amja called Amja Fatwa Hotline. Number is 916-239-6233. Number again, 916-239-6233. We do have like certain days and certain hours. You need to go to our website, go to amjaonline.something.org, I think. Amja Online. What's that? Yeah, Amja, AMJA, Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. amjaonline.org. And you will find out the days and the time for the fatwa hours. What's good about the service is that you talk to a mufti live over the phone and you get an answer. We do have certain days for Arabic, certain days for English. I think there's a new service called Fatwa Chat. You just, during those hours, instead of talking to the mufti live, there is like a chat, like an online chat service, where you just enter the question and someone, inshallah, will be there to answer your question. I was talking about Guidance College today, which is the Islamic university that I represent, and I opened the floor to support it. There is no fundraising now. I just want to let you know that I have a booth outside, and it has a donation box, and there is a pledge forms, and there is a credit card machine. If you did not get a chance to attend the khutbah, or you did, but you did not make your donation, it's never too late. Please meet me outside, make a donation. Guidance College is an Islamic university. It is a 501c non-for-profit organization. It is an eligible zakah recipient. We offer in-house financial aid and scholarship for our students, especially the convert ones. And we are in the process of building a new masjid. So for the masjid, you can pay donation and sadaqah and even zakah. For the financial aid and scholarship, you can pay donation, sadaqah and zakah. If you want to get more information about Guidance College, not Guidance Residential, Guidance College, Islamic University, inshallah, I will be outside waiting for you. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. Barakallahu feekum. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh, for coming here and giving us a good information about Islamic financing. Just a quick announcement that if you can go to our website, click on latest ENN newsletter, you will find the details about the Eid celebration. So this time the social department has arranged a special ticketing for at Columbus Zoo. So you can go on our website, noorohio.org, click on latest ENN newsletter, and you'll get the details of how to purchase a ticket, so on and so forth. Wa jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.